Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And on Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. You may own your favorite movies digitally or on physical media, however and whenever they air on TV, your cable, your streamer. You love what you're watching so much, you just can't get off the couch. And that's what the definition of the show is all about. I'm Kevin. I'll be your host for this Couch Potato Theater. We are proud to celebrate Elf. Oh my God. So excited. It's celebrating its 20th anniversary. 2003 it came out, and we're really excited. It's hard to believe it's been 2 decades since it's passed since Buddy the Elf first graced our screens with his childlike wonder and infectious holiday spirit. Released in 2003, Elf has become the beloved classic that continues to bring joy and laughter to audiences of all ages. As we celebrate the 20th anniversary, let's take a nostalgic trip back to the North Pole and explore this enduring charm of this heartwarming Christmas tale, Elf. I'd like to introduce my guests for this special Couch Potato Theater. With me, as always, is co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, my buddy, and yours, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's up, dude?
You better not pout. You better not cry. You better not cry. I am telling you why. The Fandom Podcast Network Christmas party is here because not only is this Couch Potato Theater, this is the Fandom Podcast Network Christmas party. We got people from all of our shows here. We're hoping that you in the chat join us. Give us your Merry Christmases, your thoughts on Elf, your thoughts on some of your favorite other Christmas movies throughout time in the holiday seasons. But we're here to have some fun, talk a little Santa, have some coffee with special syrup in it, maybe some spaghetti and syrup, and you never know, some sugar plums, lots of sugar. But it's going to be a blast, Kevin, and we got a full course of elves here to help us talk about Elf.
Yes, we do. Let's start with, of course, one of our co-stars, I was going to say, but yeah, co-stars definitely, and co-host of Time Warp. With us as always, Queen of Movie Foo, Miss Lacey Adderhold. Welcome to Elf.
Hello, Santa! Hello!
Welcome. It's good to have you. I'm glad you're here. But we got more. We got some fun co-hosts from over our other show over here in the Fandom Podcast Network. And we've got Union Federation co-host shenanigans going on right now, starting with Amy. What's up, Amy?
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here on Couch Potato Theater.
Welcome. And also, we got to bring in Haley. What's up, Haley?
I like syrup on my syrup.
Yes.
But only if it's true syrup, and it's got to be from Vermont. None of that really super thick stuff because it's gross.
I just gotta say too, Haley, as much as I love your headdress, this might be the first podcast ever on the Fandom Podcast Network we have to put a seizure warning in.
Let's see. I can turn him solid. There.
That's awesome. But our elf crew is not done yet. We have to bring in someone from long ago, far, far away in another galaxy, our co-host of What a Piece of Junk Star Wars podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network, Derek Marsh. What's up, buddy?
Ho, 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 green giant. Oh, wait. All right. Sorry, it's the wrong guy that's wearing green. My bad. But no, Merry Christmas all. And I have to wear my plethora of Star Wars stuff.
Nice. Look at that. Boba, nice.
There you go, to represent for ugly Christmas sweaters. So,
love that.
No, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Kyle, who we got there in the chat? Anyone come up there? Was that Jennifer?
So somebody we know. She's been known to be naughty and do a few beatdowns in fantasy football.
That would be Jennifer. Yes, good to see her. We are celebrating 20th anniversary of Elf, guys. Are we feeling a little old yet? 20 years. Haley, what do you think?
Yeah, no. I was like, wait, it's been that long? No, it couldn't have been that. Like, every time someone's like, it's an early 2000s, early aughts movie, I'm like, nah, it wasn't that long ago. Oh, it was that long ago. Jesus Christ.
Amy, are you feeling 20 years? Does it seem like that much?
No, you said that, and I'm like, no, it just came out. Like, and then you see Will Farrell now, and you're like, okay, yeah, he has aged a little. He's still wonderful. But yeah, time flies.
Derek, what about you? You've got a youngin in the house too. Has the little girl been introduced to Elf?
No, she hasn't watched this one. She's still a little bit on the live, like people movies,
Mhm.
We've tried watching a couple of things, and it's just, as long as it's cartoons or the CGI animation, claymation stuff, she's all about it. But still not quite. So maybe in a year or two, maybe she'll start liking to the live action stuff. About if you got the Muppet Christmas Carol, that has live people. That's about it because you got Muppets.
Nice. Right. Kyle, 20 years, 20th anniversary of Elf, man. Is it flown by? What do you think?
I remember when a young buddy left the North Pole. That's a long time ago. Also, too, just real quick shout out to, because the mascots of the Fandom Podcast Network are in the house too. Tummy and Stripesy are here with us celebrating on our Christmas party.
Yeah, they need the kitties in the podcast room there. They need their time. They need their screen time. So yeah.
It's in the contract when I adopted them. So but
Otherwise they strike.
Yeah. No striking in this holiday party.
Well,
No.
Well, guys, we're here to celebrate the 20th anniversary of this movie. And when Kyle and I were deciding what Christmas movie to do, we were throwing some stuff out there. We wanted to hit an anniversary as well. And there is a couple of other Christmas movies that we're going to talk about briefly that are sharing the same anniversary as Elf. And we're going to bring them up for a particular reason in a minute. But we wanted to hit this one because this one, for a lot of different reasons, and I'm going to get your opinion soon on this. This has hit a chord quickly, and 20 years may not seem quickly, but when you look at the Christmas movies in general that we do like to watch on rotation every year, ones that have been around for a lot longer than Elf, have built this legendary Christmas aura around them, if you want to say. There's been something about Buddy the Elf, that has kind of skyrocketed to stardom a little bit faster than other Christmas classics may have. So we'll get into that a little bit. But first, I think it's time for those of us that maybe don't know the plot as well or remember for Couch Potato Theater here on Elf. We're going to give a quick little Elf flick summary. Buddy was an elf in an orphanage who stowed away in Santa's sack and ended up at the North Pole. Later, as an adult who happened to be raised by elves, Santa allows him to go to New York to find his birth father, Walter Hobbs, he who is on Santa's naughty list for being a heartless jerk. Had no idea that Buddy even was born. Buddy, meanwhile, experiences the delight of New York City and human culture only as an elf can. When Walter's relationship with him interferes with his job, he is forced to reevaluate his priorities. Guys, I want to get right into the beginning of when you guys first saw this. Did you see it in the movie theater? Did it take a while for you to watch it on cable or video? I kind of want to know where you guys were at with this. Kyle, I'm going to start with you.
I actually saw this for the first time on video. I did not see it when it first hit the theaters just because it was a pretty busy year for movies and a lot of things going on. But what I remember about this too, because this was right in the middle of that just incredible Will Ferrell heater run, where anything Will Ferrell put out was just automatic box office gold. And this one just hit, and it hit big. And I think it's even gotten bigger over the years because as everybody in this movie has grown to such stature, when you think about Will Ferrell and Jon Favreau and where they stand in Hollywood now compared to even then. But yeah, it was a Christmas phenomenon. That is for sure.
Amy, I want to go to you. What are your first impressions of Elf? When and where did you see it? What kind of impression did it make on you?
Yeah, so I am not a Will Ferrell fan. His comedy, like that Anchorman, like the things that he's done, I didn't. And so I feel like this movie is his turning point, whereas like, okay, he's maturing finally. I'm liking his movies. I've liked his movies after. So this one really was important for me as a Will Ferrell fan because I enjoy what he does now.
Gotcha. That's a good point. You're not alone in feeling that. I know a lot of people that feel the same way about Will Ferrell. Derek, when did you first see it?
It was actually a few years before I actually saw this because it came out during college years, and just as I'd be drinking and chasing girls rather than watching movies at theaters, unless if it was Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. Those are the only things I ever made time for. But outside of that, no, it took a few years, and it was a typical to me, it was the lesser of the Will Ferrell movies, to counter what Amy was saying. I prefer his comedy, off the wall stuff. But this one I was just kind of like, it's cute, and stuff like that. But over the years, it's really started to like, oh, I can appreciate it, especially when you watch some of the behind the scene things they're making it, like you mentioned about Jon Favreau, what his intent was. As I've gotten older and just, appreciate those classic Christmas movies, this one is where it really starts to, you can really see where the heartfelt making into it, and makes me appreciate it more.
Glad you brought that up, because I believe it was Elf was doing some post-production in Skywalker Ranch that led to a very important relationship with some people there.
Yes.
Dave Filoni, maybe George
Yep.
Lucas. Yeah, there you go. Let's go with you, Haley. Give us your thoughts on Elf when you first saw it. Where were you doing?
So gosh, I was in California at the time and I was working at a movie theater. So I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I probably saw it in the movie theater. And I think at first, I'm kind of like Amy. I'm not a big Will Ferrell fan. I much prefer like the SNL skits that he did, especially the cowbell. But I thought this was such a really good Christmas movie with the humor, but it really kind of caters to kids too, and adults who have that kid-like spirit. So I thought that was kind of nice that it wasn't over the top with some of the humor like it could have been. And it was really good part on as far as I think Christmas movies go.
Good point. Yeah. All right, Lacey, what about you, or AKA Blitzen? Give me your thoughts on first time seeing Elf.
I loved it. I will watch Bob Newhart in anything. Like he's always been one of my favorites. I think when you're talking about how this has gotten much more, kind of much more quickly, kind of rose in the charts. I think that's because the players that they chose. I mean, you've got James Caan, Mary Steenburgen, Bob Newhart. Those are like heavy hitters for the year this came out. I mean, these people are. They were huge.
And what didn't Burl Ives do? Burl Ives do one of the voices too, I think.
I don't know if that was him or if that was a voice double. I know he passed away sometime right around there.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm not sure.
But yeah, heavy hitters.
Yeah, but I mean, you got some people who don't normally do comedy, in James Caan and Mary Steenburgen, and then you've got kind of the ultimate comedian in. I guess sarcasm and rhythm with Bob Newhart. So, I mean, I loved, and I probably saw it 5 times in the theaters. It was great. Loved it.
Well said. Usually I say, I saw that in the theater when it first came out. I don't remember seeing this in the theater. I remember I was working in Virginia for Decipher at the time. I was making card games. I was on the road a lot, and I have a vivid memory of actually watching this on video somewhere, whether it was on a cable channel or renting it on DVD, because I remember I was hearing the buzz about it around Christmas in a future year other than 2003. And I didn't see it. I was a Will Ferrell fan, but I didn't know if that was the Will Ferrell humor I wanted to see, and I didn't know if it would be able to pull off like this Elf guy, because I'm used to I was watching him day one from his skits in Saturday Night Live, and so I'd seen that side of Will Ferrell, and then I think I caught it on video or on TV or something like that, and then I was hooked immediately, because I'm a Christmas guy. I love Christmas movies, and so I was excited to discover Elf for the first time there. But this was one I don't remember seeing on the screen, the big screen, which normally I do. So that was kind of weird. Okay, so I wanted to throw this up at the top, guys. Elf is very quotable. There's some very, very funny scenes with Elf, very funny lines with Elf, and I have to start off with one of my favorites. And I laugh every time this scene comes on here. And it was a moment I shared with my daughter Camille when she saw it for the first time. And that's when he's eating at home with his brother Michael, and Buddy does that very long burp, not like booger burp from Revenge of the Nerds, but a pretty big burp. And he goes, "Did you hear that?" and then Michael goes, "You're so weird." I laugh every time. It just makes me laugh. And of course, I also love the Miles Finch scene here, where Buddy walks in going, "Did you have to borrow a reindeer to get down here?" "Hey, Jackweed, I get more action in a week than you had in your entire life. I've got houses in LA, Paris, and Vail. Each one a 70-inch plasma screen. So I suggest you wipe that stupid smile off your face before I come over there and smack it off. You feeling strong, my friend? Call me an elf one more time." He's an angry elf. And after he gets beat up, he says, "He must be from the South Pole, elf." And I just love the quick scene with Mr. Narwhal. "Bye, buddy. Hope you find your dad. Thanks, Mr. Narwhal." But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on some of your other favorite quotes. Haley, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites is when he stumbles upon the raccoon in the park, and he's like, "I just want to hug you," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's Haley." Like, "I just want to hug you. Like, you're a wild animal. Like, come here." And so I love that because I'm a hugger, so I like to give people hugs. So yeah, I want to hug the animals. And I think just one of my, not so much lines in the movies, even though the lines are great. I just love, like the little moments of seeing someone, even though obviously as the person himself, he knows them, but like that childlike joy of like running around and screaming in the revolving door. Like I would do that. Just like the little things, like pushing all the buttons in the elevator. Like, "Oh, I'm sorry I can't go with you all the way up, but that was really fun." I just, like those little moments where it's not even a line, it's just action, I think are the best for me in this movie.
Derek, what about you? You got any favorite lines, quotes?
Well, your picture just queued me up for what my favorite one is, because this is when he meets the fake Santa and he's whispering in his ears, and he's like, "You sit on your throne of lies."
I think that might be one of the most memeable quotes
Yeah.
from this movie. So yeah, that's a good one.
Just that whole portion of it, just hilarious. And he's like, "What?" And then he's asking him like, "What did I sing on your birthday?" And he's like, "Happy birthday." And he's like, he's like, "Got me there," So just that whole interaction right there is hilarious. So I say that's probably one of my favorite ones too. And then obviously the one earlier, when we were doing the whole Santa and he screams, right? Yeah. Santa's coming. So
Lacey, what about you?
Okay, well, the discussion of the cotton-headed ninny muggin is hilarious. With Peter Billingsley, and then, just the kind of this sadness in it. But when it comes to like my favorite character, like side character or secondary character, Faison Love. Everything he does, every conversation he has with Faison Love absolutely cracks me up. Like when he comes in, he's like, "Use the walkie-talkie. Let me know if you see anybody. They must have brought a ringer from corporate." And he's like, "Do you see this place?" I mean, he's got this like, he's a conspiracy theorist. Like, that he doesn't believe in the moon landing and that he thinks like things were staged. Like, that he's got some stuff hanging out, and like he's just, and I love it. Like, I am there for him. He is absolutely hilarious to me.
Kyle, what about you? Got any favorite quotes?
There's something that's been with the studio that's been bugging me, and now I finally remember. This place reminds me of Santa's workshop. Except it smells like mushrooms, and everyone looks like they want to hurt me.
That's a good one.
I also love the fact that the four main food groups: candy canes, candy corn, and syrup. That's a good balance. Diabetic diet there, but one of my favorites, and it's not so much a quote as it is a scene. One of the greatest snowball fights in the history of film.
Yes.
This is true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's got dead aim there, man. He's like
Yeah.
John Wick with snowballs. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah.
John Wick has no shot against Buddy the Elf. I'm just saying right now.
Amy, do you have any favorite lines, quotes? Oh wait, you're on mute.
Yeah, I saw that picture on the escalator. Hilarious. That whole sequence of him experiencing the city, like what you were saying, Haley, just those small moments. Because spinning around in the door, or you know that escalator, man, that's really scary. And you're trying to get on, and then he jumps off, and the people are waiting. It was really cute. And I have a question. So you were talking about this snowball, and another thing that I love is how he decorates everything. Like the theme, every room that he's in is decorated like the North Pole. And he did that a lot at night, and he's throwing snowballs. Like, I thought he was a human and just being raised by an elf, but he has special powers. Is that ever explained, or what's in your head canon?
You hang out in the North Pole long enough, Amy. I speak from experience. Things happen.
Okay.
That's a good point you brought up, Amy, and they don't really talk about it, but I think that what I like about that question, Amy, is that it lends to the magic of Christmas. There's always some type of magic that Santa has, that we learned in this, of course, the Christmas cheer, and yes, there's just something magical about what Buddy has acquired or been able to do. That's the impression that I get, that he has certain abilities, and of course he has the ability to charm everyone eventually. So I think that's what I get from that anyway. So
okay.
Yeah. All right, guys. So I mentioned earlier that there's three big theatrical release films for Christmas films that are definitely Christmas themed, take place during Christmas. And that, of course, is Elf. And I'm talking about in 2003 Christmas. That's Elf, Bad Santa, and Love Actually. All of those came out in 2003 during the holidays. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick little of how much each one made. Elf made $228 million. Bad Santa made $76 million, and Love Actually made $249 million. Now, I bring these up because I'm going to tease something soon about this, is that Elf is PG, but Bad Santa and Love Actually are rated R. Now, I'm going to bring that up in a little bit because it's a very important topic about that. But I just want to mention that filming began December 9th, 2002 and wrapped on March 2003. Filming took place in New York City as well as Vancouver and the Riverview Hospital in British Columbia. This film makes a heavy use of perspective to exaggerate the size of Buddy compared to all the other elves. Stop motion animation was employed for certain sequences. CGI was used but kept to a minimum due to Jon Favreau's own preference. Something that he would later note had to fight very hard for. Will Ferrell said in interviews that he suffered ill effects after eating too much sugar for the film. And Zooey Deschanel's singing was not in the original script, but Favreau added it after he learned that she was a singer. When Buddy starts singing in the middle of Santaland at Gimbel's, the lyrics were not scripted, and Will Ferrell improvised the song on the spot. Apart from the snow and post-production, most of the computer-generated imagery, CGI in the film, was created by Rhythm and Hue Studio. Buddy's belch, my favorite scene, after drinking a 2-liter bottle of Coca-Cola, was dubbed by voice actor Maurice LaMarche. Kyle, do you know who that is?
That name rings a bell, but you're going to have to refresh me a little bit.
I'll have to go into that later because apparently he's done a lot of voiceovers before. But we got some critical rankings on this. I want to get your guys' thoughts on here. First of all, we got to go to Roger Ebert. Okay. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, calling it one of those rare Christmas comedies that has heart, a brain, and a wicked sense of humor. And it charms the socks right off the mantelpiece. Rotten Tomatoes. Elf holds an approval rating of 86% based on 202 reviews, an average rating of 7.1 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, a movie full of Yuletide cheer. Elf is a spirited, good-natured family comedy, and it benefits greatly from Will Ferrell's funny and charming performances of one of Santa's biggest helpers. I wanted to stop there, guys, because I want to talk about Will Ferrell for a moment here. There's a lot of people like yourself, Amy, that don't like Will Ferrell. My wife can't stand Will Ferrell. And I get it. He has a certain type of audience and he's not for everyone. However, in this film, though, we seem to see a little bit different side of his comedic charm, his genius, whatever that you want to say, that has more appeal, his humor, than probably a lot of the other films, because he does a lot of rated R comedies and stuff like that. So, Amy, I want to go to you. Your reference to Will Ferrell, you've obviously seen some of his stuff. What is it about his performance in Elf that won you over?
You know, when he is just so authentic, when he believes he's this elf, he's different. Like just that beginning scene really captured me, and it's like I can relate to that. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm in a weird environment. So I think the script is what won me over, and then his authenticity of just being 100% an elf. I loved it.
Derek, what about you? I want to get your thoughts on this. I know you're familiar with this stuff. How familiar are with his past, and you know, what is it about his character of Buddy that resonated with you?
So yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, same thing as you. You know, you know a lot of him from his SNL days, right, and all of his skits. There's a lot of great ones from the late '90s, early 2000s. You know that you know, especially the Jeopardy ones, the Celebrity Jeopardies are the best. But overall, there's just what Amy's saying. This is a character that in the movie itself, it fits where Will Ferrell to a T. Like, I don't think there's anyone out there that you could say, yeah, if you had to pick somebody to play this type of character, you would instantly have said Will Ferrell, right? Not even knowing that, you know, if you've never seen this movie, because it's just that type of character and the way his comedy goes that it's great. So,
yeah. Kyle, you thoughts?
This is an interesting time actually for Will Ferrell because he's really doing a lot of kids kind of things at this point. He had done a lot of his, you know, harder comedies like Anchorman, Talladega Nights, things like that. But around 2013, I'm looking at IMDb.
You mean 2003?
I'm sorry, yeah, 2003. He was kind of in this weird thing. He had just done. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm saying 2000. He was right in the middle of blowing up. He had done Old School. He was doing Elf. Right after Elf was Anchorman. So he was right in the middle of this. But doing a kids movie like this is something that's been is something Will Ferrell has always gone back to throughout his career. If you look back, the Lego Movie, he's done a lot of voice work for animated stuff. So this has always been a lane that's been in Will Ferrell's career. This was just our first time really truly getting to see it, and it's such a difference in the aspect of we're not seeing him do his comedy for over the top for adults and R-rated. We're seeing it for kids, and I think it did really give us a different perspective on Will Ferrell at the time.
Haley, what about Lacey? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it bears noting that his first child was born in 2004, so he probably realized that, like, okay, I'm about to have a child.
Oh, good point.
Maybe it might be nice for me to have some things in my repertoire that my kid can see. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as the rest of it, I think the character is just so innocent and likable. A lot of the characters he did prior to this were dense, not necessarily innocent, and some of them weren't very likable. This one hits both of those spots. I mean, he's innocent and just likable enough to like overcome the annoyance that perhaps other, you know, characters in the film might have had towards him. So,
good point. Yeah, having a kid, that'll change it, definitely. Haley, your thoughts on Will and about this time in his career? What drew you to him on this?
Yeah, I don't know necessarily if it was Will Ferrell that made me want to watch this movie. Again, I worked at a movie theater, so I watched a lot of movies actually that I didn't necessarily want to see. I think though that a comedian, you really, if you're wanting to flesh out your talent and your chops, you're going to go outside of the box of what you normally do, and I haven't seen a ton of Will Ferrell stuff outside of, SNL skits as well, because it's just not my kind of comedy. And so I like that, they take a risk and do something where it's comedy, but it's different form of comedy than what they normally do, because then it gives other people an idea of like, hey, we're not going to shoehorn this person, this actor, into this specific type of role. I mean, we can think of like Nicolas Cage, who got like shoehorned into, certain type of roles, and to see him something else other than like this action hero kind of person, it's really
like the
weird.
Family Man Christmas movie that he did,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, you think of Leonard McCoy, and he, and people get shoehorned into these roles, and then studios only see him for that. And so I think to flex your abilities and to show something that you can do that maybe still in your wheelhouse, but it's a little bit different, is really wonderful for actors to do. And I think, you're sitting here and we're talking about like, oh, well, could somebody else have done this role? And I could maybe, if I sat and thought about that for like 10 minutes, I might be thinking somebody that might have been able to do it as well. But I think for him, I think that worked really well.
Good
His
point.
face at that point, like, the curly hair and everything, and his mannerisms, I think was just perfect.
Yeah. For me, I was pleasantly surprised by his performance, to be honest with you, because I like raunchy Farrell. I'm a fan of those R-rated comedies. I loved his style, but when I saw this for the first time, I remember a lot of I was looking back at a lot of the skits that he was playing on Saturday Night Live, and he was one of the standouts, and he was very, very funny. He had a lot of great returning skits, and I was more surprised about how believable he was as a human elf, and how charming that he was, and how he, can basically take some people a little bit longer to get used to him, like his biological father, but he was able to win people over, and that's always something I find fun and endearing as well. But I want to talk about this, guys. I have a couple of discussion points here that I want to bring up about this film. And the reason why I want to bring these up is because I think Elf, in some people's minds, either they can't stand it, or, there are some detractors out there. But then there's a lot of people like us that love Elf, and how quickly it's kind of become this instant classic. People have used this instant classic line when a new movie comes out way, way too much. But I think Elf in 20 years has definitely earned that title for a lot of reasons, because it has endeared it. You see it all the time playing. You see the new versions of DVDs hitting the shelf and Blu-rays, all that every year. They're always reselling it. It's playing on Max right now. So it's always out there. It's one of those, with a Christmas Vacation, It's a Wonderful Life, Scrooge, Red-Nosed Reindeer, all of these classics that come out every year. Elf is always right there, and it's rising to the top for me. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But I want to ask you guys about this article that I found, and I'm just going to pull one quote, and I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. This is a Rolling Stone article. And says, Elf, Jon Favreau reflects on Buddy's magical legacy. Quote, "Our goal was to make a movie that could be part of that pantheon," the director says. Now, Haley, I think he was, from day one, John wanted to, first of all, make this film to where it was family friendly. It could be played anywhere, and he wanted it to endure. Did he accomplish that?
I think so. I think, this movie is one of those where, and I think that a lot of like Christmas movies do this as well, but, it falls into that even 20, 30 years from now, it's something that you can go back to. I know we might talk about this, but like my favorite Christmas movies that I watch every year, I have two. They're really old. Like they're from the 40s and the 50s. And, I watch them every year, even though I know them because I've watched them from years and years and years. And so I think, he wanted to make something that is going to be in the same realm that has that spirit, that magic of Christmas that, you can just continue to watch it even, and it age well isn't a thing. I mean, it is, but I think this is where it is that it just doesn't age, if that makes sense.
That's an excellent point. I like that. Blitzen, how about you, Lacey? What do you think?
You're on mute, Lacey.
Every time. Oh my gosh. Oh, I had a thought. What was the question? I'm sorry. My mute messed me up.
That's all right. John Favreau said our goal was to make a movie that could be part of that pantheon. Those elite Christmas movies is the impression I'm getting what he means by. Did he succeed? Did he succeed?
Yeah, I think he did. And I think it's partially because everything in the film, I mean, there's not a lot of, they don't reference a lot of technology. I mean, they do a little bit, but they don't have, there's not like a cell phone everywhere, and there's not, so, they make things like a revolving door fun and interesting, and a thing that he would, pay attention to. They still rely on things like the actual sleigh and reindeer and that kind of thing. And they do they use like the engine thing as opposed to some sort of, high tech thing. So I think that they it's a timeless situation. They didn't do a lot of times when movies don't hold up, it's because the technology of the film kind of brings you out of things, right? You watch Hackers now, and they talk about like how this has got 128 bits, man. And you're like, oh God, I have that in my chapstick, or whatever. So I think that they deliberately chose to not reference a lot of things that could pull you out later. If you look at the clothing, you take a look at any of the costuming and that kind of stuff, there's not a lot of specific pieces. Everything's very generalized with the exception of the elf costuming. There's not a lot of dating things in the film.
That's yeah, I'm like looking at the cars, Yeah, you're right. There's definitely a way of not dating it hard. Derek, what about you? Do you think Favreau became part of that pantheon with Elf?
So, if obviously as MCU and Star Wars fans, we know that Favreau caters to the fanboys, and you can appreciate it because Favreau is the same age as the rest of us, right? He's in his late 40s, I think, at this point. I don't think he's in his 50s yet, right? So he's, most of us are in our 40s or, early 50s. And we, Haley just touched up on a little bit earlier, right? There's these two movies that I used to, watch when I was a kid, and I still watch them today, right? They're Christmas classics to me, right? Same thing, right? If you ask any of us, what are the Christmas classics, right? And the same thing for our parents, right? Think about 20 years ago when this movie came out, and our parents, right? Maybe even our grandparents, depending on, how old you are. And then the kids that are today that are adults that watch this when they were kids when it came out, right? And it covers all of that if you think about it, right? Talked about what Lacey just talked about. There's the practical effects part, right? That and you mentioned it earlier, Kevin, right? That John had to fight for those, to get those things because he wanted that classic feel. He wanted a modern feel at the same time. And he did a really beautiful job of meshing it all together where, I mean, maybe some younger people today, that, like I said, grew up with this might say, oh, this is, one of my top 2 favorite Christmas movies. Most of us or our parents, probably aren't, right? But if you were to say, what's your top 10 favorite Christmas movies? I bet a lot of us might include this, right? And that's a job well done. If you think about it, especially, if you think about all the Christmas movies that come out every year, every decade, right? Even the ones you mentioned, yeah, Bad Santa and Love Actually, probably are, people would consider them Christmas movies, definitely. But are they going to say they're top 10? probably not, but this one would. So, when it had competition like that, obviously did well because it caters to all audiences. I also think from the earlier comments of, some people don't like Will Ferrell, to the fact that this was PG helps Will Ferrell a lot, right? Because he doesn't go over the extremes, right? He has to kind of keep it mellow, where it's just enough. And again, based off the character he's playing. So it just does a really nice job. And I think, Favreau does it because he caters to the fanboy, which was us at the time. We're, young adults. And it brings back classic, and then yet it still opens up traditions for kids that were at the time 20, 30 years later, another 10 years from now, when those kids, if they haven't already had it, started having kids, are going to be having their kids, and it'll be a Christmas classic for them.
Yeah. Amy, what about you? What do you think? Do you think that Jon Favreau was his intent to make this one of the great Christmas movies? Did he succeed?
One of the great. I think I'm gonna agree with what you said.
Just to
Derek.
clarify, when he says pantheon, I'm assuming that's what he means. That he wanted to make Elf up there as one of the big Christmas movies that you would remember and be on a talking discussion point.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with what Derek you said. Like top 10. Yeah, this definitely will get there. Is it my top 3? Oh, that's a hard place, and probably just because of me and Will Ferrell, like I wouldn't put it that high up. But, and Lacey, I loved what you said about there was no technology. The things that we saw, your standard suits. Well, suits are timeless, and so the fashion wasn't high fashion. So then that's not going to date the movie. I liked that it's the story that's been told a million times, but it's done in a unique way. And that's what puts this movie above sort of the other just classics. Like this one, I like its uniqueness. And so for me, I would put it in my top 10. And I think it is a very good success. And I'm so glad to have watched it again because it reminds me how fun and creative and timeless it is. Because I didn't feel like I was watching a 20-year-old movie like you do with some movies.
That's a good point. Kyle.
So I think with Elf, the issue that kind of happened with it probably about 10 years into in its existence was people tried to force it as a holiday classic. And they didn't give it time to marinate. And I think what's kind of happened, especially maybe the last 5 years or so, is Elf's just kind of been there. It's been part of the popular culture. It's been allowed to be a very popular generational Christmas film. And because it's just been allowed to be that, it's starting to become now a Christmas classic as you have a generation that grew up with Elf that are now sharing it with their children. I think Favreau did succeed in creating a very special Christmas movie because the one thing about Jon Favreau, and Derek brought up this point, is he's basically one of us. He's from our time frame. He registers with us. He's giving us things in Elf that we recognize from our childhood growing up, which makes it more identifiable and that special. And there's just something about a Jon Favreau film that I think connects with people of our age group. He's just so good at being able to do that. And I think it works so well with Elf. And I think because Farrell puts in this great performance, but even for him, it's toned down because he's trying to do it for children too. It just creates this perfect combination. And when this movie was just allowed to just exist and be there, it became more of a Christmas classic now that we're 20 years into it instead of 10. And then you add in the aspect to me of as well, just time passing. And that this movie is timeless because you don't really see the technology. That's what makes this work. It just could exist at any point in time. We could have that technology. We could have it, could not have it. But hey, it's really not something you pay attention to in the film.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Okay, guys. So there's a couple of talking points that I wanted to bring up. And as I alluded to, the other films that were coming out, holiday Christmas films that came out in 2003 that I was teasing earlier. There's a couple articles that I found. I found one here by NP Telegraph saying 20 years ago, November 7th, 2003, Will Ferrell transformed into Buddy, an elf who discovers his human roots and embarks on a journey to find his father in New York City. Since then, this classic movie has inspired a musical, an animated special, and even a video game. Yes, a video game. So why is Elf so special? And another article I found here by Mac Shimikowitz, published November 7th, 2023. These are all recent articles. 2003 was an exciting time for Christmas movies, as Love Actually and Bad Santa gave adults a reason to get in the spirit. A little film about a big elf became a box office heavyweight. Jon Favreau's Elf turned 20 on November 7th, 2023, and it remains the most enduring and best Christmas film of that era for a reason. After the overblown, star-focused family comedies of the 90s, the Christmas cheer was in short supply. In 2003, signaled the return to form for a holiday genre. The 90s were on a naughty list. In the years following Home Alone in 1990 and the 92 sequel, studios leaned harder on major comedy stars and Arnold Schwarzenegger to play Scrooge. Bill Murray and Chevy Chase could tell you that star-driven Christmas movies aren't new, and amid the mediocre star vehicles of that era, Disney released two masterpieces, The Muppet Christmas Carol and The Night Before Christmas. They just didn't make Home Alone money at the time. The highest-grossing Christmas family films released between 92 and 2000, The Santa Claus, Jingle All the Way, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So what I liked about these articles, guys, is it was showing you the trend of Christmas movies and what was happening. And that Elf was the real true family Christmas film, because at the time you had Bad Santa and Love Actually that were rated R. And I think at the time, Elf probably just hit at the right time and then started slowly gaining steam like a snowball, becoming larger and larger as it's going down the hill. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on the momentum that was making. And I'm going to start with you, Amy.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. I remember Jingle All the Way and sort of, these big actors doing their Christmas thing. It sort of reminds me of every singer eventually puts out a Christmas album. It's sort of the same thing with actors, apparently. So wait, what? I got distracted. What am I asking? What am I?
This time it came out, it was the one true family Christmas movie that came out. And of course, in the 90s, there was a lot of big famous people putting out Christmas movies and such, and hoping to try and make bucks and stuff. But this movie came out, didn't have to pull any big movie stars out of their pocket. They got some great guest stars in it, of course, but it just seemed to hit at the right time.
Yeah. There were quite a few of those movies, and they're coming, and I don't know. You're gonna have to go with someone else. I don't really have any thoughts about it.
Derek, what about you? Did you see Bad Santa when it first came out, or Love Actually?
No, neither of those. Like I said, I was in college, wasn't thinking. Like I said, well, that was December of 2003. So wouldn't that have been Return of the King?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes,
so
it was.
yes, so that was the movie I saw 5 times in the theater.
Actually, I can let me just pause for a second here. Let me put you in a little time machine here. So the film opened at number 2 at the box office in the United States with 31 million, finishing behind Matrix Revolutions, also in its first week. It topped the box office in its second week of release, beating out Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World.
Oh, that movie was bad.
Additionally, Elf went on to compete against another family-oriented film, Brother Bear. In the United Kingdom, it opened second behind Love Actually. And in 2018, 19, and 2020 reissues earned a bunch of more money, including around $2 million, respectively. Now, I think Return of the King came out in a little bit later.
In December.
Yeah. We're talking about like November releases and stuff.
Yeah. Well, like I said, in college, I would have been focused on finals at that point, Thanksgiving break, all that stuff. Like I said, so the fact, and this is the one thing I hate about movie studios, like I don't want to see a Christmas movie in November. Like, I'm sorry. I love Christmas. It's great, you know, that stuff. But really, December 1st, I'm all for it, right? I mean, even though I've got, you know, a week before Thanksgiving, I got my Christmas tree up, but that's because my wife and I, you know, don't want to, you know, happy wife, happy life. But outside of that, like, I don't do any Christmas music, you know, I don't do all that. I might do some Christmas shopping, obviously Black Friday, because you can't pass up deals on that week. But outside of that, like, I'm not watching all my favorites. Like, that's what I try to do December 1st through the 25th, and even, you know, probably the week after, still watching some Christmas movies that come out, right? So again, that's exactly what I'm not looking for. And like I said, if it's not playing in theaters at that point, then I probably didn't think of it, like I said, other than, you know, Return of the King 5 times.
I know how that feels. Yes. Lacey.
I love Richard Curtis. Okay. Four Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill.
Director of Love Actually.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. So Love Actually is in my top 2, 3, you know, in there. It's one that the family watches every year, along with Die Hard and The Long Kiss Goodnight. So I was going to see that movie regardless. I mean, I have a strong,
You're talking about Love Actually.
Yeah. So I was going to see Love Actually anyway. When it comes to, what's it with Lauren Graham and Bad Santa? I think I saw that once or twice, once in the theater, and then I think I saw it on DVD or something a little while later. It's not in my favorites. It's really not. It's when I watch a Christmas movie, I want to see something like happy and uplifting and fun, and either action and just, you know, huge, crazy action with a happy ending, or light and sweet and funny and, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, Love Actually, loved it. Bad Santa, I laughed through it. It was funny. It just wasn't really my cuppa.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You know, Derek, you reminded me, like, yeah, the reason why I didn't see this movie in the theaters, because I was like, Lord of the Rings. I was working for a company.
Decipher, yeah.
I was working for Decipher that was releasing the Lord of the Rings trading card game. I was on the road. I was promoting Lord of the Rings. So yeah, that's why I did not see that in the movie. But of course, I had to see Matrix, the sequel to Matrix, and yeah, Master and Commander was not a good movie. Some people disagree with you there. Kyle, did I get your thoughts on where this movie? I can't remember who I hadn't asked you.
Well, no. This is an interesting time because I think Love Actually really filled the niche that was there, obviously, for the romantic comedy, Christmas comedy that hadn't really happened in a while. Plus, you know, at the time, Hugh Grant making all the ladies swoon. So, Bad Santa, I did see that in the theater because I love Billy Bob Thornton. I thought it's a great dark comedy film, something a little different. But again, it comes to with Elf, it hit, and it was a movie that you could take the family to. And at Christmas time, that's what you want to hit with. Yes, you had Lord of the Rings going on. You had The Matrix going on. You had all these fanboy things going on. But if the kids say, Dad, I want to go see a Christmas movie, they were getting taken to Elf. And that it found that niche, and it just slid itself right into there. And again, you know, Will Ferrell just being Will Ferrell at the time. I mean, he was a legitimate top box office draw. And so you add all those things together, and Elf just absolutely hits it perfectly.
Good point. Yeah, good point. So, guys, we have to. Oh, Haley, I'm so sorry.
Jeez.
I'm on the naughty list. Sorry.
Sorry, I got him thinking about Lord of the Rings. That totally screwed his brain.
Yeah, it did.
No, it's okay. Well, and it's funny because you're listing all the movies that were out at that time. And again, I worked at a movie theater, and I was like, geez, it was like taking me back to when I worked at the movie theater.
I think I saw Bad Santa in the theater just because I was a Lauren Graham fan, and I'm like, I want to see this. But yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
And so, like, oh gosh, I was just thinking about like all the movies that were playing around that time. And yeah, I remember Third Lord of the Rings. That was fun. Anyway, no, I think for me, so I didn't see Bad Santa. It was not, I agree, it's not my cup of tea either. Not a Billy Bob Thornton fan. And I'm also like Derek. I know Christmas in my Thanksgiving. Like Christmas is December. Like keep there's a funny thing I saw in someone's yard, and it was a blow up Santa and a blow up turkey, and the turkey was like they put out a sign saying like stay in your lane. Like it's not your time yet. Like Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, but I think Thanksgiving is kind of the kickoff season. It used to be just the kickoff season. Now Christmas is creeping into like back to school. Back to school's over and then Christmas. But it's the time when people get together as families and they want to do stuff for the holidays because they might not see each other at Christmas. And so it makes sense to have a wonderful Christmas family movie, I think, which is wonderful. And then, yeah, we did have these Christmas films for the adults. I also agree. I actually love more. If we're choosing between the three, I would pick Love Actually as well. I think there's so many fun little stories in there about like everyday life that it just really kind of, someone can connect to one of those stories in that film, I think, which is truly wonderful. I think everyone can connect to at least one, if not two of those. And so I thought that was wonderful. Those stories in there as well. So like, I think it's great that we had this Christmas film because in my opinion, if you're talking about the ones that had come before, nothing really had been good except for Home Alone, and Home Alone 2 is great because Tim Curry's in it. So
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. I think I think it's one of those movies that not only did it hit at the right time, as we said, but it just gained steam. And I think that whether it was hitting, obviously, and you were showing me your ornament, Lacey. I got to show you mine. I got my my elf Christmas tree ornament, and it's it's a video cassette elf there. Lacey, let me show you yours up there. Hold on, I'll put you up there. There you go.
This is the Hallmark one. It's the little fake ornament. Isn't it cute? Where's the camera? There it is.
But at the time, it was gaining popularity on home video, and every year you'd get another version of it. Remember these videos that came out? They were the Infinifilm versions, and this one had the cool little slip cover, and then you open it up. It's got like a little bunch of buddy adventure stuff going on here, and it's a sparkly cover too. So yeah, guys, let's talk about the cast. This is where I think this movie hits a home run. There's a lot of people to talk about here. I'm going to just kind of go through the big ones here. Of course, we've got Jon Favreau, the director here. He also makes a cameo as the doctor. Will Farrell, of course. We got Zooey Deschanel as Jovi. We've got what's his kid's name again? I keep forgetting. I'm forgetting his name. Well, anyway, we'll come back to him. The brother Michael, I think is his name. Mary Steenburgen as well. Of course, we've got Bob Newhart as Papa Elf. And Amy Sedaris, of course, most people know her now in Star Wars, The Mandalorian. What's her name again, Eric?
Talking about Amy?
Yeah, Amy Sedaris.
Yeah.
What's her name? Her character's name?
Now that you put me on the spot there. It starts with a P. Give me a second.
We'll come back.
Yeah, I can't remember.
We'll come back. We also got, of course, Peter Dinklage as the angry elf, Miles Finch. Who else do we got here? We've got, of course, James Caan as the father on the biological father, buddy. That's also on the naughty list there. And let's see what else have we got here. We've got Santa himself,
Ed Asner. Wow,
Ed Asner. Yes,
great late.
Yes. And some other names here. Faison Love is Gimbel's manager. Michael Lerner is Fulton, and I love the fact that we get the I guess what is it? designers or the people who work and try to make up these kids' stories by Andy Richter and Kyle Glass from Tenacious D, who are probably the worst at their job ever.
Their pitches were awful.
Yes. Artie
Awful.
Lang is Gimbal Santa. Leon Redbone is Leon the Snowman. That's who that was. And Ray Harryhausen as the polar bear cub. I mean, really?
Did we forget Peter Billingsley?
No, I was going to come to Peter Billingsley.
Sorry.
He is one of the lead elves that is kind of breathing down Buddy's neck on how to do Etch-a-Sketches right and some other things, and sends him into the Jack in the Box room.
Oh gosh.
Yes,
that scene where he cringes and because it's not going, I'm like, that would be me every single time. No Jack in the Box.
Yes, Peter Billingsley played Ming Ming, and then Jen in the chat mentioned that Max Favreau played the young Buddy. So yeah. Oh, and Maurice LaMarche played the voice, of course, the belching voice. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on the cast here. Let's go ahead and go with you, Derek.
Pelimoto. That was from
Pelimoto. Thank you.
Yes, I knew. Like I said, it was on the tip of my tongue. I just couldn't think of it. I'm a huge Ed Asner fan. So obviously him, playing Santa, and like Lacey mentioned earlier too, Bob Newhart. Right. I didn't watch the original, but the Newhart show was obviously something that we used to watch all the time too. And then he had, what was the one, Lacey, in the 90s that he came out?
Cartoonist?
Yes, that one.
Bob.
Yeah. So that
Bob.
one, just Bob. Yeah. So that one is the one I remember watching along with Ed Asner's one. I can't remember the name of it too, where it had the one little boy from the movie, and I can't think of it, but he was the grandfather and all that. Those 90s sitcoms, when sitcoms were actually still good. Watch those. So yeah, I mean, just having those characters, like I said, it caters to the audience, right? It's meant for like myself, like, oh, I grew up watching these people on television. My parents grew up watching these people on television. They're going to be like, oh, okay, that they're going to be more welcoming to that, with the cast here. So, just overall, those were some really great, but again, they play the older characters, right? The wise characters. I just, like I said, the whole North Pole cast is right on par. And it's so interesting to see Zooey Deschanel now. She's cute as a blonde, but definitely the brunette black hair is my fave. So
Haley, what about you? Your thoughts on the cast?
No, I think the cast worked great. I think Zooey Deschanel is probably one of my favorite characters from the movie. And I totally agree, Derek. The blonde is just, it's not a good look. And they also did it way too yellowy for her skin tone. I'm a natural blonde, so she should have been a little lighter. But I like that they threw that in. And I love that, Favreau let her sing when he found out that she's a singer. Although I think the only thing that bugs me, like really bugs me, is now as an adult knowing how toxic the song that she's singing in the shower. I wish they would have picked a different song. That song is really bad.
That song has not aged well, and it's brought a lot of extra attention over the last 12 years. Yes.
Yeah. So
maybe it's cold outside.
I think it's great, and I love, it's fun that we have, I think, these two female characters in this movie. They're really, we have the three because we have Bob, his secretary, but I think, the most that we see is Zoe's and I can't remember. Anyway, and and I think they do really well. Their characters are really well balanced. They're created really well so that they hold up against, Will's character and whatnot. And so I think that's fantastic.
Awesome. All right, Lacey, your thoughts on the cast?
Love the cast. By the way, I own all three of those Bob Newhart series on DVD. I just adore Bob Newhart. Love him. I've already said that I absolutely loved Faison Love in this. His like crazy. He's so funny. He's so funny. I think the main cast is fantastic. Obviously, you've got kind of the main three or four. But really do think that the supporting cast is like, there's not a single person that was cast that I would recast. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I loved everybody. And if you get a chance, Zooey Deschanel has she's released a whole bunch of CDs. The band, it's she and a friend of hers, and the name of the band is She and Him. And you should check that out because she's got like 5 or 6 or 7 CDs out. And their Christmas CD is actually really good.
Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, Amy, what about you? Your thoughts on the cast?
You know, I really like everyone. James Caan is not, I don't know. I didn't feel like he fit. I felt like he looked too old to be Buddy's dad. He looked too old to be married to opposite Mary, who I absolutely love. However you say her last name. Say it again.
Mary
Steenburgen.
Steenburgen.
Yeah. I totally forgot that she was in the movie. I really like her. And I felt like, well, she wasn't a grump, but she was married to the grump. And so I didn't know why she wasn't able to be more effective with her own husband. So that dynamic of the movie, and then I just sort of put it all on James Caan. But love Ed Asner. Totally forgot he was Santa. And yeah, seeing Peter come in, Angry Elf, that really surprised me too.
Just for the record, the ages, James Caan was born in 1940, Mary Steenburgen 1953, and Will Ferrell in 1967. So the ages do match up, with him being about 27 when his first kid was born. And then, her being just maybe a decade younger just because, whatever.
Yeah.
She liked money.
Kyle, your thoughts on the cast?
And this is one of those times where you just they nail the cast, and even when there is a last minute cast change, it works out better. Faison Love famously coming in at the last minute for Wanda Sykes, and he's still using the Wanda name tag for his character is great. But it's everybody in the supporting role that really makes it special. I mean, obviously Farrell's great in it, but whether it's Zoe Deschanel as Jovi, Ed Asner as a great Santa, Peter Dinklage as Miles Finch just steals it when he's in that scene. It's great, but again, there's not anybody in this film. It's a lot of known people, but I don't think anybody really steps on each other's toes, and nobody really steals scenes from each other. And I think that's one of the things. If you go back and watch a lot of Favreau movies, you see that he's really good at getting a good cast that has good chemistry working together. And I think this is one of those movies that really it shows that.
Now I need to see the version with Wanda Sykes. I can hear her voice like saying those lines and just acting that way. That would be great. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, this is an enduring film, guys, and I always look forward to watching this. And it's become, it's funny, is I will sit on a Christmas film, and not watch it the next year. Maybe I'll come back around the year after that. But there are certain movies that I will watch every year, and this movie is creeping up there. And I'll get into more of that a little bit later. But guys, I want to get into some movie trivia here. All right. So according to Will Ferrell at the movie's premiere, co-star James Caan approached him and said he felt Ferrell's performance in the film was too over the top while they were shooting the movie. However, when Caan saw the finished film, he later said he understood the energy Farrell needed to put into his performance and later praised Farrell, saying he gave a good performance. Amy, I was just thinking about what you said about James Caan. In a way, I felt like he was playing himself because if you watch all of his films and stuff like that, he always plays this kind of gruff guy. And, from what I've learned about Caan's history, he was a badass. He was a hard drinker too, and stuff like that. But it was nice to finally see him make the turn and, become the father that he needed to be. But I was just kind of wondering, like, who else could have played him? But what your comment kind of sit with me, and I think it's kind of funny that he said that to Will, and I'm not surprised by that because he's one of those guys,
Yeah. And I was thinking as I was watching the movie, I'm like, he was just the one that just didn't hit for me. And I was like, who else could have played it? And I didn't come up with something good. So he'll be okay. It's just, he was my least favorite.
Yeah. So guys, as we mentioned earlier here, we did have a appearance here by Peter Billingsley, of course, more famous from A Christmas Story. I Want My BB Gun. And he's the elf Ming Ming, who appears briefly in the beginning of the film. He starred as Ralphie Parker in the classic holiday film, A Christmas Story. I didn't know this for years, guys. I had no idea who that was because he doesn't really look like Ralphie here. So it's kind of
Yeah, he does.
I didn't catch. You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you compare it to, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the new Christmas Story, right? That HBO Max came out with last year. But I mean, you could definitely tell. I mean, yeah, the glasses and the facial hair makes it a little bit hard, but that's definitely Ralphie. So.
Yeah.
and I was gonna say though, real quick, from your question of who else could have played James Caan's character, it would be ironic if it was today because we've seen it so many times. But if they actually got Burt Reynolds to play it, would have been hilarious.
That I would have loved to have seen. That would have been a version I would love to have seen. That would have been
just
great.
because you had so much with that and then the Celebrity Jeopardy skits, right? That would have been hilarious, right? So
that would have been funny. Several minor traffic accidents occurred when Will Ferrell walked through the Lincoln Tunnel in his costume because people were so surprised and distracted from the driving to see him wearing an elf outfit.
Wow.
I don't even know if you can walk through that tunnel. I don't think you're allowed to.
He can, but he did.
Yeah, I do, and I like the fact that it's in the movie. It's part of his journey, So I thought that was kind of funny. So due to his policy of appearing in family-friendly films, Chevy Chase was briefly considered for the role of Papa Elf by director Jon Favreau. However, Will Ferrell vetoed this idea because he disliked working with Chase when he returned to guest host Saturday Night Live in the mid-90s. Farrell said Chase was the worst host he worked with during his tenure on that show.
Wow.
Ouch.
Chevy does not have the best of reputations.
Yes. Now, there was a planned sequel to this, guys, and we'll touch on this a little bit more, but apparently Will Ferrell turned down $29 million to be in a sequel in 2014. $29 million.
Wow.
Cotton balls Buddy ate while he was in the doctor's office were actually cotton candy that had not been dyed. I was wondering about that. And after reading the script, Bob Newhart took such a liking to it that he told his wife how wonderful it was with both the story and the role. He saw it as being a perennial movie like Miracle on 34th Street, a movie he would play every Christmas season. This is interesting, guys, because he felt that this was going to be a film that was going to endure as well and be part of that pantheon. And on the final day of shooting in New York City, it was just director Jon Favreau, Will Ferrell, and a cameraman driving around the city looking for locations to shoot. They would jump out and ask pedestrians if they'd be willing to be extras for some quick cash while Ferrell paraded around acting like Buddy. Or they would let Ferrell surprise people and ask their permission afterwards, like with the man Buddy mistakes for Santa. Much of the montage when Buddy first arrives in New York was filmed then, such as then he was getting his shoes shined and jumping between traffic. Guys, this is what we call guerrilla filmmaking, or, trying to get past permits and stuff like that. And writer David Brennenbaum was a cameo as one of the office workers. And the scene where the fake Santa is chasing Buddy had to be done in one take because it was too hard to rebuild everything. And of course, we had a director cameo. Jon Favreau played Dr. Ben Leonardo and the voice of the narwhal who says goodbye to Buddy. So there you go. Any of this trivia here surprise anyone?
No.
No. Guys, I want to talk about the music just real quick. This had a really nice soundtrack, a lot of classic songs, Pennies from Heaven, Sleigh Ride, Let It Snow. Of course, Baby, It's Cold Outside, Jingle Bells. But I think the Santa Claus Coming to Town song that's starting to be sung by everyone, that, of course, Zoe's character starts singing, was one of the really endearing scenes with this. And I don't think we really touched on some of our favorite moments in this film. So I wanted to kind of go there. Derek, I want to start with you. What were some of your favorite moments and scenes in Elf?
Yeah, well, you mentioned it just a little bit ago, right? When he's walking through New York City the first time, right? And obviously, it is kind of partly when Bob Newhart has to tell Buddy, right, that he's not, he's human, right? Because he hears it from work and he like phases out and passes out, and then he has to like go cry in the little bathroom, and he has to like sit him on his lap, and they're doing that, and he's like, you can see he's in pain, when he's telling him, trying to rock him forth, and then he tells him, don't eat the gum that you find on the subway. You might think it's free, but don't eat it, right? And then he still eats it, right?
Yeah.
That one, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about the quotes, right? You sit on your throne of lies. That whole interaction there at the department store is just great. And then I also think part of why there's a good chemistry between Zoe and Will and their characters in the movie is because like when they kind of go on their first date, right? Like it's that innocence of a child that he's taking her like, through the carousel door and everything and all the things that she's doing. And she's just sitting back and, those wildlife wonders as a child, that he's experiencing for the, kind of the first time still. And just that innocence. And like I said, there's just that thing that you kind of think of like, oh, that is sweet, right? Like someone that's, in their 40s now, you're like, yeah, I could, as a first date, yeah, I could see why she likes him, right? Because she thought he was silly and cute, right? So, but yeah, those are some of my favorite. Obviously, Peter Dinklage when, his character first walks in and you just see the elevator door open and then close, right? And then the whole thing. Yeah, that's funny too.
Amy, what about you? What are some of your favorite moments and scenes?
All of those. But one that just really surprised me were the horses and how they were portrayed, and
it was like the headless horseman, like going through, like they were the most evil things on the planet, like they were the Nazgul.
I know. I thought that was so funny how they spun that. It just. And then I like the snowball fight as well, and the and then them singing and the belief-o-meter and also the news people, reporting on the event and stuff. That I really like that, and I think that lends to more people believing. So I like that whole park scene.
What about you, Lacey?
A lot of the stuff that I liked was the misunderstandings. I love the fact that, he picks up the negligee and it says for someone special in your life. And so that ends up being, and then when he's in the bathroom and he's like, have you seen the size of these toilets? They're huge. Because, he's just been sitting on a teeny tiny elf toilet for the past 30 years. Like just the little like things that they kind of drop in. I mean, there's a lot of really quotable stuff, and there's a lot of stuff where, the over the top, funny, crazy stuff. And running through and wrestling with Artie Lang and all the Faison Love stuff is great. But just those little tiny kind of nuggets that you see, those are part of most of like my favorite things.
What about you, Haley?
Well, I think the only thing that hasn't been mentioned or hasn't been talked about is when he drinks the coffee with the syrup in the mailroom. Anyway, and he's laying there and he's talking with this guy who's working in the mailroom for his probation officer, and trying to and they're both drunk and they're just talking about it, and like the guy's like, no, I just said get off it, man. I love that. Like it's not syrup, buddy. It's not syrup.
Kyle, what about you? What are your favorite?
Well, as I said earlier, the snowball fight is phenomenal. I love that scene. I'm a big fan of the scene in the mailroom too, when they're both drunk and just laying there, and Nobody listened to me before you came here, and you're my friend. Also, I'm a big fan of that scene where he decorates the department store, because what he accomplishes in one night, I'm like, wow. Because just to build that Lego alone is impressive.
Yes.
That's like a 10-week excursion there. But no, I mean, that's the thing about this movie. This movie has so many great scenes, and there's something for everybody in it, and that's what makes it a wonderful Christmas film.
We also can't forget the world's best cup of coffee, as was just commented on our.
Yeah. Speaking of, I want to give a shout out to Jen. She's been giving out some great suggestions. And the one scene that I really like, she mentioned here, was on the Bluff Creek Sasquatch pose while walking through Central Park. How many of us have seen that famous old picture of Sasquatch walking in the back? And I love the fact that the news camera caught that. And I forget who it was that mentioned the news stuff. Was that you, Haley?
No, Amy mentioned the news.
Amy, yeah. I love, especially when was it Michael the brother opens up the book of what people wanted, and that he's talking about how the newscaster wants her boyfriend to get off and and hurry up and propose to her, which I thought was really funny. That was a great scene. I'm gonna go back to this one. This is my favorite. I love the burping scene. Makes me laugh every single time. And I gotta tell you, every time I let a big one out, I don't care who's around me, I will say, "Did you hear that?" Just love it. It's great. But I think I forgot who mentioned it earlier, but I love the scene, the date scene. I love the date scene. I think it's great. I love that, Zoe's character, Jovi, is just, digging every silly thing that he's doing. And this is kind of stuff that maybe some of us done on a first date, maybe on a second date, who knows? But very cute scene. I thought that was very, very, very enduring. I love that scene. So anyone else have anything on their favorite scenes they want to talk? Yes, Lacey.
When he's talking on the phone, when Michael's on the phone and they've been doing the tree, and he's like, "We got to do the star on top," and Buddy's like, "I'll get it." You see him in the background jumping, the tree collapsing. Might be like way up there for me. Absolutely.
I can't tell if that's I can't tell if that was Will Ferrell or a stuntman, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Will Ferrell. That's what's funny.
Or
guys,
when he makes the rocking horse. Where'd you get the wood? The TV's on the floor. Entertainment stands all like broken.
I have not seen this. It might be available somewhere on a deleted, on a special feature. But there was a deleted scene where apparently, while he was up in the North Pole, there was a hockey scene that I can only imagine got pretty physical with Buddy. Has anyone seen this deleted scene? Anyone heard about it?
I have the DVD and the Blu-ray that you'd think that it would be on there if it was. I mean, if it is, but can you imagine the insanity on how to film just a moving scene with the forced perspective? Like how?
Yes,
that's a situation.
Oh, they're all little kids. They're all little kids.
Yeah, but still,
he's doing it.
I wonder. Jennifer's been commenting, and she mentioned about the movies that made us on Netflix. They had an elf, and I know I watched it, but I wonder if maybe they talked about it on there.
That's a good point. I gotta look that up because that.
And he also did Peter Billingsley and Jon Favreau together did a show called Table for Five.
Yeah,
and it lasted 2 or 3 seasons. And I know they talked about Elf on several occasions, so maybe it came up in one of those conversations.
So, guys, as we start to kind of wrap it up here, I did want to mention a couple things. First of all, did you know there was a stage play, Elf the Musical, a Broadway musical based on the film, ran on Broadway during the 2010 Christmas season. It was directed by Casey Nicola. And it officially opened at Al Hirschfeld Theater in New York. And apparently done very well. They've done different versions of this. And George Wendt played Santa, and it ran through January 2nd, 2011. Anyone heard of this or knew anyone that's seen this?
Well, I mean,
they've taken it on tour.
What's that, Derek?
They've taken it on tour. I've seen it. at some point here in Lexington. I didn't get to go see it, but I know that it ran through. It was either here or Eastern Kentucky University or something like that, or at the Lexington Opera House. Yeah, I know that they're, well, occasionally somebody's playing it every few years for Christmas stuff.
Gotcha. There's also a video game, guys, based on the film released in November 4th, 2004. Kyle, you're a video game guy. Did you get this?
No, because this was for a system I definitely did not own. This was for one of the oddball Game Boy systems that was out there at the time. And this is when they were just basically saying, okay, it's on a Nintendo Game Boy. We're going to throw whatever licensing we can on it, and it'll sell.
There was also an animated special, Elf's Buddy Musical Christmas. Elf Buddy's Musical Christmas was an hour-long stop-motion animated musical television special based on the film and the musical of the same name. While Ed Asner was the only cast member for the film to reprise his role, the rest of the cast included Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory as Buddy, Mark Hamill as Walter Hobbs, Kate Micucci as Jovi, Rachel McFarlane as Emily Hobbs, Max Charles as Michael Hobbs, Gilbert Gottfried as Mr. Greenway. It was produced by Warner Brothers Animation and first aired on NBC in December 16, 2014. It features songs from the musical. I did not see this. Has any of you guys seen this?
I'd heard of it, but I don't think I saw it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And as I mentioned, guys, there was a canceled sequel on September 18th, 2013. It was reported that Favreau was interested in making a sequel to the film titled Elf 2 Buddy Saves Christmas. Later in December, Farrell stated that he did not want to make a sequel. In January 2016, Favreau stated the sequel could still happen. The next month, Farrell reiterated that a sequel was unlikely and stated that he was generally reluctant to do sequels unless there was a story that justifies it. On September 18th, 2020, Kahn reaffirmed that possibility of a sequel was unlikely, stated that Farrell and Favreau did not get along. And didn't Kahn pass away recently after that? I remember.
Yeah, it was shortly after that he passed away.
Yeah. I just want to talk on that really quick, guys. Would you have liked to have seen a sequel? Would it called Buddy Saves Christmas? Would we have learned something about his mom a little bit more? Haley, you're shaking your head there. Please give me your thoughts on why you would not want to see a sequel.
I think this is one of those films where the original is so good that anything else is going to kind of contract and take away from the magic of the first one. And so I say no, just because of that. Like, you can't make a Princess Bride 2. Like, it's just like the first one is too good and you don't touch certain things. And there's too many movies from our childhood in the 80s where they made a second one and the second one just didn't have the same thing. And so you just leave certain things alone.
Good point. What about you, Lacey? Sequel or no?
I'm of two minds about it because I know it would be fun. And I know that if you have Favreau at the head, it's going to be, everything he touches is gold. They're like, hey, let's see if Fav can do a Star Wars. Oh, that's awesome. It's perfect. Let's see if he can do some Marvel. Oh, yeah, it's perfect. Let's do some Disney. Like, he can do no wrong at this point. It's okay. I'm sure he can, but let's not test this. Let's not test the waters. He's so good at what he does. And I don't think that he would put together something that wasn't quality. So I think the idea that it wouldn't be up to snuff is not as much of a danger. But the thing is, if you don't have the cast interested, then it's just not gonna happen. So I wouldn't want them to recast because they couldn't get Will Ferrell. Then it's not, you don't want to recast any of the pieces. So I think that if they don't want to do it, great. It was a fantastic show. It's a good one shot. Awesome. If they did want to do it and everyone was on board, I think it would be done well. But it's just a matter of finding the right script and the right time and everything. And the thing is that when you make a movie, everything has to come together. So like, it really is it's a house of cards. Like every movie that is made is a house of cards. Like the one small piece falls through and everything is, and then it's just, the movies that get made, the number of movies that didn't get made because this one movie got made is exponential, you know? So.
What about you, Derek? What do you think? Sequel?
Typically for Christmas movies, I don't think sequels make a good thing. I'm okay when they do those, 30-minute specials or whatever, right? If they would have done the stop motion animation there, that probably was clever, right? But again, you didn't have the original voice cast, so it might have fallen a little out of place. But again, if it's made for that, where they can kind of just go silly with it, that's fine, right? Whatever. But if you're gonna really put the movie, there's a time and a place. I'm not saying that they couldn't do something with this movie, but really what made this movie enjoyable was the innocence of Buddy the Elf, right? Not being with the humans and, all this time. And to be able to bring that magic back, it almost feels like it would have to be something to do with the South Pole elves at this point, because that's the only thing I could think of that they could do something with, right? Where you bring in like a whole
Revenge of the South Pole Elves.
something, right? Like
Peter Dinklage is one.
Yeah, maybe, right? And they use horses to pull their carriage, right? And sleighs.
The night the narwhals died.
So like it would have to be something that would be so off the wall that I'm not saying that they couldn't do it, but then really is it at that point, is it Buddy the Elf, or is it just something to do with this universe and they could just recast it? Like, because that's Lacey's point too, where you have to bring everyone back. Now again, the parents, like it's James Cain and all that, Ed Asner, obviously Bob Newhart's still alive, so he can still make a lasting thing. So they better make it quickly if they want him to return. But other than that, again, what that magic that's made this movie, quote unquote, a classic in the Christmas world that we're enjoying today, it just doesn't hold the same thing. Like you can think about like Santa Claus, like with Tim Allen, like that's a good movie. 2 and 3 are not, right? They were made direct for sequel type deal styles, even though they did get released in the theater. They brought back now, 20 some years later, they brought back the Disney Plus series. So I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard it's cute. It's got some potential to it. So like, okay, maybe, but maybe that's where then, HBO Max brings a series out of it, where it's something where we get like a 6 or 8 episode series where it's not necessarily a movie, where it's more about us actually getting maybe a better, well thought out story. And, it's got just some of the returning characters that way, and they can bring in the cameo cast of people. Right. But like I said, to me, no, it's one of those things where it's lightning in a bottle. It works. It does well. Let's leave it.
Good point. I like it. Amy.
I've been thinking a lot about it, and I don't think I agree with Haley. You've got to just let it be. It's a great movie. But if we did something, I think because I liked the story so much, maybe get, the same director, the same writers, like that cute story, unique, but still Christmas, like Elf. Like, what if they did Snowman, and had some twist on Frosty the Snowman, so it's Elf-like. That's how I would do it. But no, I don't want them messing with what they've got going right now, because you're right. I don't think that stories number 2s are really ever as good as the first one. I mean, it's very, very rare. And this story is so tied up in a lovely bow that what more would you want out of it? I think anything else is going to be lesser. And I don't want to have anything related with Elf be lesser. That's a good movie.
Great point.
The only way to get back at it would be to have something wrong, like Santa's ill or something, but he needs to go back and help take over.
Right.
Or, and do something like legit
return to
where
the
his son is doing, his son learns that his dad used to be,
Yeah.
Or they don't make a Christmas movie out of it. They do like they did with Rudolph the Red-Nosed and the Ronkin Bass movies, right? Where it's Buddy's shiny New Year, right? Where he has to go save New Year's or something. Like that could be fine, right? But it's some Christmas-y stuff maybe, but make it not Christmas. Like he has to go save, whatever, Easter, right? Like that's why I like Rise of the Guardians so much, because it's a nice Christmas movie, but it has Jack Frost and it's got all the other characters, right? Where you can watch it more than one time out of different season.
Kyle, what about you?
No, you leave this alone. This is a classic. You leave it alone. You don't do what Disney has done with the Santa Claus movies, Tim Allen, where, this is you want a Christmas classic, you leave a Christmas classic alone. You don't revisit it. You enjoy it for what it is, and that's what makes it special every year when it happens and it comes out and it's that time of year. I don't need a sequel. Will Ferrell has moved on to a lot of other things. Jon Favreau has moved on to other things. You don't mess with perfection, and that's what you'd be doing if you do a sequel with this film.
You mean you don't want to see his 20 years later as a failed children's writer trying to figure out what to do with his career?
As long as he doesn't have,
wait.
as he doesn't have Richter and Kyle Glass still working for him.
Lacey, when Buddy Drunk Love comes out, I'll let you know.
Guys, I was on the sequel train there for a little bit. You guys made some great cases, and I think that it would have to be you get as much people as you get back, and maybe have a little twist with it. I like the idea of the snowman, or doing it at a different time, like maybe making a Thanksgiving movie, getting ready for Christmas, that type of thing. But I would be fine with him never doing a sequel to this, because I think Haley, I think you're right. It is like a Princess Bride thing. The way that it ends, it's a great ending. And not knowing what happens and thinking of it for yourself of what could have happened is part of the fun with this film. And the fact that there is only one of these, there isn't a sequel. We don't have to look back going, ugh, that second one was really bad. They did better in the third one, but we don't have to have that discussion. It's nice. And by the way, guys, there was another movie that came out in December, but it went straight to television. That was a Christmas sequel. And that was Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. With Randy Quaid. A holiday in the South Pacific goes awry when Cousin Eddie's family and a tour guide are shipwrecked on an island. Did anyone see that?
I have to see it now.
I haven't even really watched the first one.
Going on Amazon and finding out.
I mean, I know it existed. I just never had any inclination to watch it.
All right,
He's my
guys.
least favorite character in that show, so I will definitely not be watching that.
Oh my god!
All right, guys. This is Couch Potato Theater Elf. We're celebrating the 20th anniversary. I want to get the final question out for you guys. I want your perspective, the now and then segment here. It's just a two-part question. Jennifer says that would be a no. First of all, your perspective now compared to when you first saw it, and let me know where this Christmas film, Elf, ranks in your top Christmas films. Maybe give me your top 3. And does Elf reach top 3? Or is it just your top 5 or top 10? But I would like to hear your other favorite Christmas movies if you'd like to share that. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
All right, Kyle.
So as far as then and now with Elf, I think it's a movie that's grown on me over time. I think it has become a Christmas classic for a part of a generation. I think it's going to continue to grow as the time goes by and become one of those ones like A Miracle on 34th Street and some of those that are just, they're a Christmas staple. But for me, as far as Christmas movies, my favorites, well, number one for me, I'm a huge Scrooge fan. I love that movie. I think it's one of Bill Murray's best films. It's so much fun and just so out there. Big fan of The Muppet Christmas Carol. That's just maybe one of my favorite interpretations of Scrooge as well. The Muppets are a soft spot in my heart. And so I always enjoy that. And then It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life is the ultimate Christmas film. It's the ultimate Christmas classic film. You can't go wrong with Jimmy Stewart and everything there. It's perfect in every way as far as a Christmas film, and it's the one movie I think of all the Christmas movies out there that it is a must watch every year.
Lacey, let's go to you here. Your thoughts on Elf now and then, and where is it in your top 3? Does it make it or not? Christmas films.
Yeah, that's the thing. I have like 3 or 4 different categories of Christmas films. You've got your classics, your, Miracle on 34th Streets and your It's a Wonderful Life and White Christmas, that kind of thing. But my kind of favorites are the less traditional. So I like to do the Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, the Ref.
Invasion USA.
Yeah, sure. But no, like the Ref and Trapped in Paradise, things like that. But when it comes to the comedy section, Elf is in my top 5 for Christmas comedies. With things like Scrooged and just things like that. But I'd say it was definitely my top 20
Gotcha.
overall.
Okay. All right. Haley, what about you? Where does Elf stand for you now? And does it make it into your top 3?
So it's definitely not in my top 3. It might be in my top 10. I haven't really given it much thought. I think my opinion of it is the same. Like, it is just like, if you want a funny Christmas movie to sit down and watch, this is definitely a fun one to bring out. And enjoy with, family, and, you can just kind of sit and watch it and have some laughs when you're wanting it. My top ones, I go for White Christmas. That is traditional for me. So that one is just definitely my favorite. And then I really love the original stop motion films. My favorite is The Year Without a Santa Claus, because you can't pass up the Heat Miser and the Snow Miser. So I love those. And then to go along with that, I love the Jack Frost one. I'm not a big fan of like the Rudolph and the Frosty the Snowman, but I do love the Jack Frost one. And then I go to Love Actually, and then I'm going to throw one out because we haven't discussed it. The Holiday, and then yes, The Holiday is a good one. I do love that one. And then I won't go to all the 10, but my next one down would probably be The Family Stone. If you guys haven't watched that, I highly recommend it. That one's a really good, touchy-feely, really, really lovely story.
Gotcha. Good choices there. Amy, what about you? Where are you feeling on Elf right now? And does it reach your top 3 or top 5, top 10?
Yeah, I am now going to put this into my rotation. I really am so glad that we're discussing this, because I really have forgotten just what a wonderful story it is. Just endearing. I mean, it's a Christmas story. So my go-tos, the Christmas Story, that's just like my number one. That is my go-to. I watch it all the time. I think about it all the time. And begrudgingly, a tradition, I've now come to learn to like Christmas Vacation. As I said, that's the kind of humor that normally I don't, but my sisters and we would watch it every year. So it reminds me of family. One that is just lovely, and it's new, Spirited, with Will Ferrell. And who's the other guy?
Ryan Reynolds.
Yes, Ryan Reynolds. I really enjoy that. But I always love a good Christmas Carol story, or So, and then one that's not, I like Jen, like I consider it a Christmas movie in my house, and that is Edward Scissorhands. I just,
yes,
Nice.
that's just to me a Christmas movie, and people look at me like you're crazy. I said, well, that's okay, because Die Hard is not a Christmas movie, and I will die on that hill. But
I'm there with you, Amy.
I was writing down all of yours, and now I've got some fun movies to watch. I've totally forgot about Muppets Christmas, so that's what I'm going to watch next.
Add Kiss Kiss Bang Bang to your list.
Okay.
That's Christmas adjacent, yes. Derek, did I ask you this? I can't remember.
No. So
Okay.
There's the few classics. I would agree with Haley on White Christmas for sure. Obviously the Muppet Christmas Carol. But there's another one that I watched that I love because it's one that I grew up with my dad. It's Scrooge with Albert Finney.
Yes.
I love that one. That is my favorite version. But it's kind of the same thing that like Lacey mentioned. Like I have categories for everything, right? Like I could put in my top 20 alone with every, Muppets, Christmas Carol, Muppets Family Christmas, Sesame Street Christmas.
Emmett Otter.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Emmett Otter's Jug Band. There's all a bunch of them, right, that they made. And then I enjoy like the classic cartoon ones. Like there's like several Flintstones Christmas ones, right? And
Charlie Brown.
Scooby-Doo, and one that was going to be my probably my most iconic favorite is Charlie Brown's Christmas, right? But they've even created some newer ones, right? That came out in the 90s and 2000s of Charlie Brown stuff with additional Christmas stuff. But definitely that one. And then Christmas Vacation, I have to watch that every year. And then most recently, we've really, like I mentioned earlier too, Rise of the Guardians. But the one that I'm really enjoying is the CGI animation, The Grinch, the one with Benedict Cumberbatch as the voice.
Yeah.
And Kenan Thompson as one of the Who's is hilarious with all of his stuff. And then obviously, so I recommend that for anyone who enjoys the CGI stuff. And then last but not least, obviously, the Home Alone movies are great to watch.
Yeah. Such great choices. When it comes from me, as you guys may know, tell a little secret here, I like Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
And it started with Christmas Hallmark movies, and I've not apologized for that. I've always been a fan of that. And so when I get closer to Christmas, specifically in December, for me it's more traditional Christmas movies. Yes, we have the Christmas adjacent films that take time during Christmas, but it's not the biggest theme, like the action films like Die Hard and Invasion USA, Lethal Weapon, a lot of those films. I'll watch them a little bit earlier, like maybe in November or something like that, if I want to go down there, or I'll just watch them, earlier in the year. But I really like to dive into the hardcore Christmas themes, whether they're very predictable stuff that we'll see, of course, on the Hallmark Channel movies or the classics. And for me, my two favorite ones, my number one favorite of all time is Scrooged. With Bill Murray. I have a very special memory of seeing that with my mom in the theater, especially during that end scene where Bill Murray is talking to the audience. I was there. We were yelling along with Bill Murray. Number two for me, and I always watch this on Christmas Eve, is It's a Wonderful Life, the original black and white version. And number three, it's funny because it's either Elf or it's Muppet Christmas Carol. But these are the ones I always watch every Christmas. The other ones will kind of be on a rotation. I'll watch them every other Christmas, or I'll wait a couple of years. But one of the one that's rising a lot, we mentioned it earlier, is The Family Man with Nicolas Cage and Téa Leoni. A coworker of mine turned me on to that one. I find that one really sweet, very endearing. I like that one. But I'll go back and watch some old stuff I haven't seen. The original Miracle on 34th Street. And I'll just kind of mix in a bunch of others from, whether it's the Netflix films, they have their holiday stuff. And, you give me any Christmas movie that has a prince or a princess in it, I'll watch it. I just love those. I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess you could say that. But with Elf, it is definitely in the rotation. I watch it every year, and it's right there, number 3, number 4 with the Muppet Christmas Carol, as I never get tired of watching that. So, guys, this is Haley. Yes, sorry.
I was going to say, if you get a chance, if you're a fan of White Christmas and you get a chance, see a live version of that. We got to see it. There's a theater in West Yellowstone, the Playmill Theater, and they came down. It's been a few years, but we went on my birthday. And currently my mom asked if we wanted to go to Arizona this month because they are doing, they have a live version of it. So if you ever do get a chance and you're a fan of White Christmas, do check out the live musical if you get a chance, because it's really good.
Oh, that's awesome. I love live stuff like that, especially that's why I would have loved to have seen the live Elf. That would have been a lot of fun to see that. So, and by the way, if you get a chance, make sure you check out Back to the Future on Broadway, because I saw the London production. It was fantastic. So
Beetlejuice is touring.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. All right, guys, let's wrap things up. This is the Fandom Podcast Network here. We are discussing the 20th anniversary Couch Potato Theater Live Elf. I want to thank you guys all for joining me here. Please, of course, if you are listening to this, make sure you check out the video version here on YouTube because we're showing been showing a bunch of fun slides. And please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. Appreciate that. Please share, comment as well. And our master feed for all of our audio podcasts is at fpnet.podbean.com. And also, you can find us on all your major podcast platforms. We're on Facebook, Fandom Podcast Network. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram and X. And my name is Kevin. I am on X, Instagram, and Threads at Spartan_Phoenix. Derek, where can we find you?
You can find me, Derek Marsh, on Facebook. As you mentioned earlier in the intro, I support the What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network team. So you can find us on a Facebook group, and you can find me there.
Lacey, what about you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I don't do a lot. I'm not a very good social media person.
But we can find you on Time Warp here on the Fandom Podcast Network.
That's the thing. I do some Time Warp. I do some Couch Potatoes. I do some other podcasts with these guys. And, that's about it.
All right. Amy, I know where I can find you, but where can we find you outside, of course, the Fandom Podcast Network?
Yeah. So you can find me here, the Fandom, the Union Federation. Yep. And you can hear me on BQN podcasts, All Good Things, starting a new YouTube because you guys are very inspirational. We're going to do a Trek-inspired talk show starting January 7th. We're going to run one season for 10 weeks, and that will be Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific. So that's where I'm going to be for the next 10 weeks here on YouTube.
Yay! Yay! Haley, where can we find you?
You can find me in our Facebook group on the Fandom Podcast Network. You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky at Trekkie01D. And I would just love to tell everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Fröhlich Weihnachten, Buon Natale, and Slancheva.
Nice. Kyle, my buddy, where can we find you, sir?
Hey, you can find me on Twitter, X at AKyleW. You can find me, of course, all over the place on the Fandom Podcast Network. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. I just want to take a moment, too, while I have everybody here to wish everybody in the Fandom Podcast Network family a very Merry Christmas. Kevin and I are so happy to have you as part of the family and love all of you guys. To all of our listeners out there, Merry Christmas. Be safe. We value you guys. We do this for you guys. We love you. We hope those of you who have joined us, Jen, you're just as much a part of the family as anybody. So Merry Christmas to you. And all you listeners and viewers out there, you are part of the Fandom Podcast Network family. So Merry Christmas and Feliz Navidad.
There you go. Again, thank you all for joining us here on the Fandom Podcast Network for Couch Potato Theater live special presentation of Elf. 20 years. Again, I'd like to thank my my fellow co-host here, Kyle, Amy, Haley, Derek, Lacey. Thank you guys so much. And also, Jen, thank you for shouting out stuff there in the chat. Very much appreciate it. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Hope you guys enjoyed Elf here. And please hit us up on Facebook, any other ways. Let us know what your favorite Christmas movies are. We got a fun season in 2024 coming up with a lot of fun stuff. So I'm very excited to share that with you guys. Until next time, we will see you on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.